The new August ban list has dropped, but rather than reacting to the ban list that multiple other content creators have already touched and done, I figured I would rather focus on what these changes really imply for the second half of our BT17 format, which I'm going to be calling the 17.5 format, aka Dallas Card Fest's format. If you guys haven't already supported the channel, I definitely appreciate when you like, comment, and subscribe. The support on this last video was fantastic. It let me know you guys actually enjoyed the content. But another plug I do want to throw in for you guys, if you are preparing for Dallas Card Fest, I am running a case tournament at the end of the month, along with my weekly webcam locals that will already be implementing the ban list. So let's go ahead and dive in and talk about the new ban list in the 17.5 format. Starting off this section of the video, let's go and talk about the decks that were touched and see if they're actually playable. I think if we look at Numemon as a whole, we lost the promo Uko, we lost Nume X, and we lost Louis. The funny thing is, I think this deck is actually very playable still. Replacing Ukomons with the starter deck Agumon to gain a memory at start of main, you're going to be running that with Cool Boys and Agu X to help get your consistency in finding Nume X and Monze X as their key cards for your deck still, along with your Protoforms, because you're still able to go Monze X with Protoform. So I can see a shift where you're actually de-emphasizing the use of Monze Mons, but upping the count of Protoforms to kind of substitute Monze Mons since you have Cool Boy to search, and you want to get extra value when you go into Agu and Agu X, Nume X, and Monze X still. But you can also add the top end of like Rapidmon, you can emphasize the Edamons with your aces still too, so it's a very strong deck with strong key cards. You just lose the ability to scam like a Ruin mode on turn 2 using Nume X Inherits. Next, moving on to Magnamon. Magnamon X Antibody, the yellow build with yellow vaccine, because TK and Awakening Golden Knight both got hit. I think this deck loses all its viability and consistency. You don't really have a way to reliably stack your security anymore unless you use the Patamon start a main effect, but you also have to kind of gamble hoping you had the level 4 in security as well, or get the 1 TK. So Magnamon X V-Base is definitely playable still. I think you can honestly just kind of go with the same game plan you always had. You just can't use the Flame Dramon armor promo that we just got as a box topper as often now. Then we move on to Ancient Garurumon. I think this deck is actually very playable still. You'll lose the Ukomon promo, but you still have Bokomon as a memory pluser, or kind of replacement I should say. It helps you find your pieces a little faster. You might run Nemons as well, so you can play out the Tamers from hand faster. And then you have your one Hammer Spark, kind of replaces the Uko, not exactly though. So getting those cards hit definitely hurt. And then if we look at the Ancient Garurumon with the Gabu loop base, that build is probably just about dead, so you can't loop your mats more than once per turn. Since Louis at 1, that was definitely a key and strong enabling card of that deck. And then in terms of decks that kind of came back, the Gabumon I don't think was enough for Melka to really make a difference, but it's nice seeing cards come off the ban list. So let's go ahead and talk about our strong contenders and honestly probably the winning decks of the ban list. I think there's 5 real decks that were winners from this ban list. So first and foremost, let's go and start with the obvious ones, the blue decks. Mirage Galgamon, this deck was not touched. The all turns effect of BT11 Mirage is still really strong in Japan, not to mention that this deck has great ways to toolbox into the future formats, having potential side megas like Hexblood, potential top end cards like the Paladin Ace can come up a lot, especially depending on what we see popular in the format. Next, and most obviously, Imperial. Imperial did not get touched. The Daiken or Davis Ken Tamer is still a super strong way to get into your stacks in DNA. Digivolve, the only issue with this deck is it's self-breaking because you require at least 4 component cards to actually get your plays, one of them being either a Daiken Tamer and a DNA Rookie, being the first piece, second being an XV, third being a Stingmon, fourth being a Pyodramon. This deck can run into brick issues still, but it's still a really strong deck, especially if you can learn how to navigate around those parts. The next 2 decks I can see doing really well is Dex Doragoromon and Lugamon Takamizuchi. These are both pretty similar base decks, and then the top ends are both very strong and do very different things. But if we see these blue decks adapt and adding Paladin Aces, this could be a really rough matchup, especially since they rely so heavily on their trash, and blue has ways to get around deletion effects by bouncing, source stripping, and so forth. And then the very last deck on this list I think is Tyrant Kabuterimon. The blue decks all kind of struggle if you can redirect them. Even though they're unblockable, you can redirect. This could be an issue if Mirage Gao keeps the BT13 Mac Gao tech, but with Magnamon X getting hit and being less playable, we could see this tech go down in usability. And finally, I have some fun rogue picks I'm going to be keeping an eye on in this upcoming format. First one, it kind of struggles with the same issues that Lugomon, Takamizuchi, and Dexter Gora could face, but is Demon Lords. If we see Paladin Ace come up a whole lot, this could be a big threat, especially if Lugomon was a main threat. This deck gets hurt on the same side. Next is Royal Knights. This deck wasn't Dutch, and it has a really cool top-end toolbox of aces they can use to go over their level 6s, because Drazel's effect is only during your turn for not digivolving, so you can blast DNA on your opponent's turn using cards like Shine Gray Ace, using cards like Crimson Gallant Ace. And then finally, Ancient Grey. This card, or this deck, pops up every once in a while in Japan. Red's just a solid color if they can get their stacks going. So I can see Ancient Grey potentially finding a way to weave its way through and becoming an actual threat. So what does this actually mean for EX7 and BT 2.0 format though? Looking ahead after the current 17.5 format. Mother Shoto is going to be a combo we will have to look forward to in the next format. I think it's going to be exciting to have a way to slow down these blue decks that have these single unswingable stacks. Gives them a cool tech. Mirage Gal can use Hexa. Blau from EX7, I believe it is, as a strong side mega because they use sources for battle instead of DP. Imperial's probably going to suffer because Mother Shoto pops up, but I believe Ancient Garurumon can be a really strong and relevant deck still. With that being said, thank you so much for the watch today, guys. I appreciate if you can support the channel by liking, commenting, and subscribing. And if you guys haven't already, check out my weekly webcam locals where we're running the 17.5 format to prepare everyone for Dallas Card Fest. With that being said, take care, folks, and have a nice one.